Hi, and welcome to another coding along session of this exercise, this specific web app we will be building. My name is Mike again, and I'm a teacher at Erasmus Hogeschool Brussels. Now, this is going to be a longer one, it's going to be a larger application, so please make sure you use the timestamps if you want to go to specific pieces of the exercise. The timestamps can be found in the description in the YouTube video. Now, on to the exercise. What are we going to be building? Well, we are going to be building a time wasted application that will track how many movies you've watched and how many minutes you've, in air quotes, wasted on those movies. To be fair, every time you enjoy a movie, it is not wasted time. But for the sake of this demo, let's say this is the finalized version with all the bells and whistles. So if I look for Avengers, then we will get a list of possible options. So let's say Avengers Endgame 19. We click on that. You get a low-res version of the profile pic because we don't want to pay for this. This is a free API we're going to be using. Then some details on the bottom. As you can see, Avengers Endgame from 2019. It has a runtime of 181 minutes. The directors, Anthony Russo and Joe Russo, to show you that we can get all this data from the API. And then a plus button that will add this to a counter. Now, the cool thing also is if I refresh the page or come back later, the counter stays there. So we store it also in local storage. Now, if I want another movie, let's say I'm just Coco, for example. Because it was Dios de la Muerta earlier. So if you want to add that, the timer goes up. So now you have the time wasted app. There's lots of things going on, from dynamically loading in stuff to having on key press data retrieval. So each time you add another text event, you do a call to an API, and then you can keep going with that. Now, of course, this is the finished version. As you can see, we start again with the window one load function test. Let's take a look at the API we're going to be using and how that actually works. Good. The API itself is OMDB Api. It's free, so omdbapi.com will also be in the description. And if you want a key, because you need a key, we will see the workings of that in the code soon. But if you want a key, you will need to go to API key and then ask their one. So it's free. Just use a dummy email, say it's for school. I don't care. So you will get a key. In that case, we will go back to the API and see how it works. It's a very easy one. It gets movies that exist in the IMDb page. So it also looks for IMDb IDs if you want to. But let's go down a bit and see with examples how this works. So again, let's take Avengers. I think the first movie came out in 2012. So if you do search, we will get a whole block of data back in the form of JSON content, of course. And this is the URL we will be needing. So let's just copy paste that. Example URL. This is the URL. Now, this will not work because if I type this in my browser, no API key is provided. Well, how does an API key work? We are going to be adding the API key here to the URL. So you're gonna get a string of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, for example, and you will be needing it to add to the URL. So for example, after the question mark, we place what we call the query string or the parameters for that URL. So T stands for title. You can look that up here in the documentation. So if you search by title, you need to provide the T and then the title you're looking for. You can also add extra parameters. For example, if I type in Avengers 2012, of course I'm going to get the first Avengers. But if I do Avengers 2019, as far as I know, there's only one movie with a title Avengers in the year 2019, and that is Avengers Endgame. So the year can be used to refine your search. So ampersand is going to be used, and then another parameter. If I want to add my API key, I would need to do ampersand API key, it's in the documentation, equals, and then your API key. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, for example. If I would be using this, let's try that. Invalid. Of course, this is a dummy API key. I'm going to be using mine as well. So let's see how we use that in code, and let's see if we can get our first URL up and running. Good. You've probably seen here, so now that I explained to you what the API key is, of course, you need to prepare some code or some HTML before you can get started with the application. Now, this is the default application. It has a card that I can fill in, so it's a dummy. We can hide it, of course, but I wanted to show you everything that is available here. So a card where we are going to be loading in the image and the text, a plus button that will be triggering the counter place, and the input field and the button field. So I have an HTML file here. So take your time in building your own. So it's a very standard one. So we have a form with an input and a button. We're going to be using a button in the beginning, and we're going to be transitioning to a no button input field later on. So we have a button here that does the submit, the search form. If you've done another exercise like the promise exercise, you will be looking at the same code again, an add event listener to submit. So the form, I have an H2 with a counter that I can, with an ID that I can directly change, of course, so it's easier to change that 0 only. A divider, and then the movie card. The movie card can be of your own design. The things that need to be in there can be a title, or needs to be, of course, the title, an image that you will be using, of course, an image that is decently proportionate, a description, which carries, I think, the plot, and we have, I think, a smaller text for something else. You can make as much as you want, or you can make the card as fancy as you want. Just make sure you add a button at the bottom, and make it look something like this. I will leave you time to it, and once you have the HTML done, you have your script added to it. Don't forget type module for a reason I will explain later. If you have that, you can go to the script, make sure your console log test works with window unload, and after that, let's get back to the URL. Good. The URL. Now, I don't want to share my API key. So we're going to be doing something that is done a lot in production sites, which is try to shield personal details from your actual code. So that means you can share your code with anyone, but they don't see your API key. Of course, I don't want to share my API key in this video. In that case, we will be using a separate file. You can do JSON, you can do JavaScript. Since we have been working with import and export in different classes, I am going to be creating a config file. So create a config file here, new config file, config.js, and that will just have a variable. In this case, the base URL. The base URL is the URL you're always going to be calling, http omdbapi.com, and then your API key. Now, of course, this is a dummy API key. I will change this in a second to actually my key, so my calls actually work. But the point is that you create your base URL here, and that you do export default base URL. And then we can import it in our code. So once you've done this, let's try to import it in our code and console log the URL so we can start building from there. We go back to the script. Let's ignore this and let's import it. Import URL from config. I think .js. we're not gonna be using Webpack or any builder tools with this. So make sure your code is ES5 compliant or ES 2015. So config.js, and instead of test, we're gonna be logging our URL. Let's see if that works. Save. And you see we have our code, our API key. Now, of course, my API key here will not work because this one is not a valid API key. I will be changing it to my key. We're gonna start building. So I'm gonna take a small break here. Make sure you're ready. And then, you know what? For the next part of the exercise, we're actually gonna be trying to make a call to OMDB API and get a movie from it. So try to just type something in, click on search, change the API, and just get some data in the console log. Once you've tried that, you can continue with the video. All right, I'm just gonna start building. So if you've not done it and just following along, no worries, we're good to go. So the moment we are in here, again, first I'm gonna start get the value from input field on click. On submit, actually. Submit. So again, this is very well trodden territory. So document.getElement by ID. I don't know how I called my form, so let's see. Search form. For those who have done the previous exercise, you can just take the same code. Get element, get add event listener. Add event listener. I'm gonna close this. Add event listener. Event arrow function. And then let's go. I'm going to do event prevent default because we're working with a submit event. Event.prevent default. Voila. I'm going to take the value. Let value from document.get element by ID. I don't know how it's called, but I assume input title. Okay. Input title. And the value. Okay, so now we have the value. And now let's make, let's see if we can build that URL dynamically. So we have the URL, we need to add the value to it. Just gonna add some more comments here. Retrieve value from input field. And then the next step is build the URL. And the URL would be, let's say final URL equals, and now we actually concatenate both of them. So let's make a template literal URL. That's the one we got from our config. So that means this is the OMDB API one. And since we need to be adding another parameter, we use the ampersand. We use T because we've learned from the OMDB API that T is a title, and we're going to be looking for the title. T equals, and then the value. So voila. Now, before we do any fetch calling, which we will do in the second part, let's see if our logic works. Log it, the final URL, done. So, oops. At least 2 arguments are required. Oh, of course, yeah. 2 arguments, submit, which event, and then the event listener. Okay, so this is a very clean piece of code. Let's see if it works. If I look for Avengers, search, then I get OMDB API, API key, ampersand T Avengers. Perfect. That's actually what we want. If you want to get fancy, add the year in there as well. There is nothing extra to be done here except for just copy pasting this, also adding the year and adding the year to the URL. If you want a new challenge, if you want an extra field in here. So now that we have this, I think it's time to get our fetch up and running in a very clean way and see if we can get the data to log into the console. For this part, I will be changing my API key to the correct one, so this one will not be visible anymore. I will delete this so it won't show up in the video. But the moment your URL is okay and the first part works with your API key, you have nothing to fear, and we can continue to the fetch call. All right, for fetching, I mostly prefer to have a separate function for that called getData. And it's something that I can keep reusing if I want to. So let me just check and try the getData function. We're going to be working with async and await because it was part of the lesson as well. Async function getData. And which URL do we need to call? Well, the one we pass along, and then we do our response. Let response equals await fetch. So these are get request, of course. If you want to do post request, we need to do something else with the properties here. We won't be doing that in this exercise. So return await response.json. So I've gone over this multiple times. So this is an async function. That means we can wait for it here in a second. And the moment we do the fetch, we wait for it. So then only when it's done, the response is filled up. And then it's the same reason also applies here. Only when the JSON part is done, we we return the result to it. So now that we have our get data function, let's see if we can try and use it in the regular use case. We go here, we build a URL, and then we get data. Let's see, fetch the data. Lots of enters here. I can clean things up, of course, in a second. But get data, I will pass along the final URL. That's going to do its job. Once that is done, we will wait for it. Then, and once it's done result, let's see if we can console log the result. This should not be able to give my API key, but let's see. Avengers. Search. Et voila. Look at that. Beautiful data that we can use. The poster, if we click on the poster, we get the actual Avengers poster for the animated series, because this is just the first thing it came across. It's from the year 1999, apparently. So our fetch works. We can continue. So the next part would be to actually get that data that we get back and make sure we fill up that card. So let's do that next. All right. So I'm gonna create an extra function again, add movie, function add movie. This is because, of course, the moment I have my data, I just want to just make the DOM manipulation inside this function. So basically when I have the result, I call add movie with the result. And this is, of course, when everything goes correctly. If I don't have data, then this will fail. Like error handling is for later. The moment I have my movie, I want to be able to add it to my HTML page. Now, I've prepared some stuff as well, so I'm just gonna copy paste this in. So as you can see here, I have the title, the plot, and the runtime. This is because, of course, my card works with that. So my card has a poster, title, description, and runtime. Let's see where that is. I have the poster. I have the card title. Card title. Let's see. We have the poster. We have the card title, card description. Shorten that. Description and card director. Card description and I know apparently card director I also have. Let me check what that is. I think it's director. Cards director. Director. This is just basic DOM manipulation, of course. The M director. These are the fields you need to look up inside, of course, inside the data that you get back. This is not something. Let me cheat. The runtime. The runtime. Let's make it card runtime. Just going with the flow here. Now let's see if that works. If it crashes, okay, then we'll fix it. Avengers, search, reference, M is not defined. Of course, M, it's not M, it's movie. We'll make it a bit easier. Avengers, bam. Avengers, NA, 30 minutes. What was the director? No director. Let me check Inception. It's a very famous director normally. So yeah, Christopher Nolan. So perfect. This is exactly what we need. So as you can see here, I have the picture, I have Inception, I have the plot, I have the director, and I have the runtime. You can soup this up. You can make this sexier. So for example, I can do, I think here for the runtime, we can make it so the year is, and you can, I would say take your time and make it what you want of it. So in this case, .year, I want to do with a dash in between, and then I want to do runtime. Voila. So normally this should be clearer. The director, I also want a text in before it. Bam. And then so you can make this as sexy as you want. Director with texts. Again, Inception. Director Christopher Nolan, year 2010, runtime 148 minutes. It's a bit more clear. So you can try with this as you want. I've done the DOM manipulation part. Now let's see if we can do the plus button. And the moment we do that plus button, we can add the count to our counter at the top. So the plus button itself, of course, is also a button. So that means I'm going to minimize this for a second. And I'm going to say add the button event listener. Listener. Yeah, listener. So again, document get element by ID add event listener. I'm just going to copy paste this, but it's my button is add movie. Add movie, add event listener, and now I'm going to just listen to click. If I click it, and then I'm going to, of course. Now, some might be wondering, why is he not typing prevent default? I don't think this button is in a form, and it's not a submit button. So the default behavior is to prevent the default submit behavior, but not the actual click event. So we have our click, and now of course we have our counter. Let's just generate, let's counter equals to 0 in the beginning. And the moment update, let's try a function. Let's say function update. Oops, update counter. Update counter, and then I'm trying to think if we can. Yeah, the counter should be okay. Update counter will be responsible for the DOM manipulation and later on the local storage. So update counter would do get element by ID. How did I call it? Let's see. I think I have the counter called counter, of course. Counter, the inner text should be counter. So the moment I call this function, the latest value will be pushed to this 0. So that means the moment I click on the button add movie, add event listener, click, then I will need to up the counter by the amount of runtime that is currently here. Now, we don't have any moment where we store the movie, the current movie that is loaded in. So, you know what? Let's just create a load value, current movie. And by current movie, I mean the movie that is currently in the car, that is loaded in. So that means when I click the button, I need to get the runtime from that movie in here. So the moment I add my movie, I can do current movie equals M. And then I can run up the counter here. So counter plus equals to, and then we find the runtime. So I thought the runtime would be current movie dot runtime. So we will add the runtime up to the counter. It says it doesn't exist in here, but the current movie, of course, can only be, we can add in as failsafe if current movie is filled in, then and only then we will add the counter. This probably will give some issues with the number and the strings, but we will test it out. So again, inception, click on the plus and nothing happens. Do we get an error? No, we get no error. Let me check. Nope. So the moment, let's see if the if statement is the thing running foul inception. Nope, nothing yet. Do we even get the click? That's my first test. So console log click. So as you can see, now I'm just debugging what is wrong. So inception, or inception. Okay, I get the click, but the runtime is not up. Now, let's see how we can solve that. The one thing I just realized is that we up the counter, but we don't log anything, and it doesn't update anything. Why is that? Because here, we just do the value, but we just created the function update counter. So maybe let's call the function update counter. That might be more useful. So update counter. And that should update the HTML page. So let's check. Inception, we didn't get any errors. So let's remove the console. Click on plus. 148 minutes. That's weird. Okay. What do I have? Dark Knight. I think that's also a Nolan. Okay. Not that Nolan picture. The Dark Knight, of course. Also from Christopher Nolan. Plus, oof, this is not something that we want. So how do we actually run that runtime decently? Well, these are strings, so we need to convert them into an integer. So parse integer is one of those functions. I'm gonna convert that here, and let's see what it does now. Inception. All right, search, that's okay, plus 148. That looks a bit more decent. Now, if we again do the dark night, search, and we add that, see, now we have a decent counter and the perfect 300 minutes to get on our time wasted part. So now we can go into multiple paths. We can update this part to be a bit more clean, or we can add extra functions. So I think the next part that we're going to do is make sure that this timer doesn't go away. So let's implement the local storage functionality and keep going with the project. Good. So the local storage is, of course, in the update counter section. Now, update counter is something that should be run in the beginning of the program. So update counter. We're going to give more functionalities to that function. So update counter. Let's just run that. And the thing that it's going to do is check if the number is initial. So if it's 0, then we're gonna look if there's something in local storage. If there's not, okay, then we'll keep it 0. If there is something, we're gonna update it. If it is not 0, then it means we're already working with a variable, so we don't need to get the local storage. So local storage itself, let me think where we are going to put this. Let's save it for now. Saving is easier. So the moment we update the counter, we can save it to the local storage. Save latest state to local storage. So that means local storage dot set item, and we're gonna call it movie counter, and we're gonna place the counter in there. Do I have to stringify it? I don't know. Let's see if this works. So that means inception. Let's clear my local storage first, just in case if there is still stuff remaining. The movie counter is already in there. Of course, because I call it in the beginning. I call it here, so that means it's 0, and it's here. Now, that's going to give problems later on, but now, for now, it works. So that means, let me just open this. Movie counter is 0. If I do inception, and I add this, it changes to 148. Now, this should be okay for now. So it saves into local storage, perfect. But now, of course, we want to check if it is already in local storage. Now, if I refresh this, nothing happens, and it gets overwritten because we keep writing to it. So the first thing we're gonna do is if the counter equals 0, triple equals even, then we're going to local storage dot get item. We're going to see if it's available. Movie counter. Let me check. If it's available. If it's available, of course. If it's not available, then we don't do anything, because then it's just 0. Perfect. If it's available, then we are going to update the counter. We're going to update the counter with the value of local storage itself. You can put this in a variable if you want. We're going to parse it, of course, to an integer, because everything in local storage is text. So that means, in this case, if we update the counter, we're going to see if the counter is 0, that means it possibly that there is already something available in our storage. We're going to get that. Does it exist? Yes. Okay, then we're going to save that on our counter. It's going to update it, and we're going to set it again. So we have a simple back and forth to it. Now, not a number is something that we have. Let me check. Movie counter. Give me a second. We're gonna check what is wrong here. Movie counter is not a number. I think we're gonna remove this first. I'm gonna clear our storage. Wow, no storage. Let's refresh. 0. Okay, that's perfect. I'm just gonna refresh again. 0. So it stays 0 now. Perfect. And I think it's also in my storage movie counter 0. Now, if I do inception, search, and I do plus, I get 148 and my storage is updated. So that means if I refresh my page now, so basically a new visit, I already have 148. So that works perfectly. I have 148, I can keep refreshing, it stays that. And if I want to have a new movie, or Tenet, I think is the new one. Tenet. Nope, Tenet 1N. Tenet, also from Nolan. If I want to add plus, then I will have 298. And this will also be the counter. If I refresh, I have that number. So perfect, our local storage works. Great addition for now. We can do some cleanup to make sure the card only shows when we do the add movie. Let's try to add that little flourish now. So that means in our add movie, the moment we add our movie, we unhid that card. So basically in our, I think display block might be an easy one to hide. Let me check for a second. We can set or remove the attribute. For example, we have an attribute hidden that we can add here. So I think if it's hidden here, hidden, then of course we don't see it here. The moment we do add movie, we remove the hidden attribute. So in this case, document get element by ID. Let's copy paste it. Lots of typing. Movie card. And you can remove and add attributes with actually remove and add attribute. So remove attribute. Which one do we want to remove? Hidden. Et voila. So that means now, if I look again for my film, Shutter Island. Now we see it. We click on plus, and it's added to the island. If I refresh, again, the number stays, and we have some cleaner page. Perfect. Now, I think the only thing that rests us for now is the dynamic search that we want. And I think that will be the final touches of this project. So let's get that going. Now, to make that final list, of course, I'm going to hide the button and we're going to change the event listener here. To do that, I want to add in the look and feel of that. So what I'm going to do is actually in here, it's going to be under the message. Let me check. Under the form, it's going to be a break. And I'm going to put a list group in here. It's something for something from Bootstrap as well. So let me just copy paste this. So the result list is something that I will be updating constantly. So I have 5 results. I think it's easier to just have these there already and then just update them constantly with some, of course, some magic to it. So you can also do completely constantly, what should I say, updating it with the code itself. So the code for just inserting HTML code, that's one option, but constantly adding it and deleting it might give a bit slower performance in this case. So just updating the text of the already present anchor tags might be enough for us. Also, when we don't remove them, we can easily add event listeners to it. So I've prepared this. Then the next part would be to how should I say? Let's try to focus first on getting all the first 5 movies inside these 5 elements. Let's try that first, and then afterwards we will make them clickable and the rest itself. So when we fetch the results, which that happens when we click on the submit, we retrieve the value, we build the URL, we get the data, and instead of adding the movie, we will be filling in the list, or at least like building the list. How should I call it? Update list with the result. Now the problem, of course, now is that we're gonna break it for a second. We're gonna disable add movie. We only get back 1 movie. Now, if we go to the OMDB API, you can do search, and search will allow you to get more results. Now, for example, if we do search, we get more movies in there. So let's try and clean our code a bit and create the new update list function. Function update list with the list. Let's call it the list, of course, and console log the list. Console log the list. I'm going to change one thing, and that is change the T, I think, in the S. And the S will give our search parameters, and that will return more data to us. So again, I've just created the function update list. I reverted to here, and let's keep it with T and see what happens. So let's hide this first, of course, because I don't like this. Let's finish that up first. Let's hide the list, so make it hidden. Make it hidden, and then of course the same logic as in the add movie functionality. Remove the hidden attribute the moment you update the list. So in this case, the moment you update the list, it's called result list. Remove the hidden attribute. It's just a bit of a nice touch. So if we search Avengers, search in our console, we get only 1 object, and then we see the list. So this is expected behavior. The moment I click on click, then I get those 5 options. Now, as you can see, I only get 1 movie. How do I get more movies? Well, if we update the URL from T to S, let's see what we get then. Avengers, there are some Avengers movies. As you can see, I get 10 in my search result. It's an array of 10. I think you always get 10. I think there are more movies. Like Kill. I assume there are more movies with the nickname Kill in it. Kill up, but it's always apparently limited to 10. So we can even, if we want, we can even do all 10 here. That's up to you. So now that we know we have all the movies in here, now we can update the list with it. So in our update list, instead of logging it, we can update that list. So that will require some specific looping. So as you can see, let's see what we get back. Avengers, et voila. Let's see what we get back. It always has an object with not as much info because we need more. So we have title, the title we have, and the year. Okay, so each object has a title and a year. That should do it for now. So that means I'm going to loop over the search parameter, which has an array. Search parameter. Oh, list.search. And we can do some building in. I think sometimes it gives an error as well. Let's try something broken. Response. If there's an error, then we don't do anything. Okay, so if list.error is present, console log log error to fix. We will do it later and show something else. And then if list.search is present, that means we have a list of data, then we can loop over it. So list.search.forEach, and for each we will we can do count, we can do index, we can do multiple things. Let's do a simple count. So for each, we always get 10 back, so we will do the 10. Let's see. The for each loop has a movie, and each movie we will do something to it, namely put it into the result list. We will do all 10 because we always get 10, then we don't have to do a count. So I'm just gonna copy paste these, bam. I'm just gonna update these to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Perfect. Good. So each movie we will update, we will do the string. Let string equals, just step by step, the title, movie.title, and the year. So year, movie.year. I think there's capital letters as well. All right. Now that we have the string, we have to import it into the actual thing. So let me check. Let's count. Let me think about how we're gonna approach this. We start from 1, so we need to dynamically add it to the results. Let's count equals 1. Let's start with there. At the end, we will do count plus plus. Count plus plus, and then document dot get element by ID. And now, of course, which one do we want? We want result with the count. So for those now a bit out of the loop, let me explain this. Each time we are going to, so the first entry of the list, we are going to place into result 1. So that means we need to dynamically determine which ID, which element you are going to be inserting it into. So result 1, in this case, result, the count is 1. So 1, we will make 1 your ID of it. And then dot inner text, I'm just going to create inner text. And inner text would be the string we just built. That's it, count plus plus, and then we keep going. Now, of course, this can crash, but let me check if this works. Avengers, search, et voila. Look how beautiful this is. So we have 10 Avengers movies with the Avengers, Endgame, and game. Apparently, we have 2 entries for Endgame. Why? I don't know. I don't care. It's something that we get back from them as well. So let me check if it's correct. Our 2 and 3 endgame. 1 is endgame. Oh yeah, apparently. There are 2 entries for that too. I think this is a mistake on their part, not ours. Our code works perfectly. So we have this now. All right, so the next step would be to get our application working again by clicking on this Avengers, should remove the list here and actually add the movie on the bottom again. Let's try to do that now. So when we click on that, the list will have event listeners. Since we already have the elements on our page, we can just add an event listener here. So that means, let me check. Let me think. If, now I need to think. Document think I need to add the event listener to each link. So we can look for class names. So document dot get elements by class name. And I think everyone has the same class, which is called list group item. And then you can loop over that. Now, of course, this is going to be a collection. This is something specific. A class gets or returns an HTML collection. An HTML collection is what we call in JavaScript an iterable type. So working with that iterable type, you need to convert it to an array to be able to use it with a for each and stuff like that. So we're gonna force it to be an array.from iterable object convert to an array. So now that we have an array, we can do for each. So for each of these elements that I get back, element, I will add a piece of code. So that means for each I will do an event listener. So in this case, element, now we have our list item, add event listener on click. Oops. And I'm going to call a function for that called, let me check, select movie. Select movie. So the moment you click on it, you do select movie, and then we call that function. Let's see where that function is. Select movie, function, select movie. Of course, select movie is going to be passing along the event parameter, and we can work with that. Console log event. Let's see if the click already works, and then we'll start from there. All right, click is not defined. Why is click not defined? Because it should be a string. All right. Avengers, search. Okay. If I click on it now, I should get something from that event. So in this case, click, perfect. I see result 5. That means if I have, the target is always the thing you clicked. So the text in there is the one that I want. Where is my text? Where is my text? Text. Aha, text or text here. Well, we have the text. So now comes a very tricky part. The tricky part now is that the moment you click, as you can see, it works now. We have the event here. So event target text, and then we have basically what is standing right here. Now we need to do some magic to actually make sure that we can get the correct movie. Because now the tricky part is if I click on this and I search for the Avengers, it's possible that I get Mightiest Heroes. It's possible that I get this one. It is even more possible that I get this one. So I need to both extract with some string magic the year and the name from it. So we can do some string magic with this. Now, of course, just make sure everything can be made easier with some storing of data. I add all these building blocks so you can learn it while I'm working with it. So now you learn some string magic as well. So I know we can save them in an array and then just get them from the array the moment I select my movie. But I will do some string magic because it's also very cool to do. So the string is event target text. So let's say, no, string is a reserved keyword. So event.target.text is the actual text from that thing. And now we can get the year and the title. And you might know where I'm going with this, because the moment we have year and title, we can do an actual clear search on that specific movie. So year would be str split. Where are we going to be splitting? We are going to be splitting on a certain string, and stop it right there. Where are we going? I think it is, there's a dash in there, a space, year, and colon. Is there a space in there? Let me check. Avengers. Is there a space? Yeah, there's a space. So space as well. Voila. So now it's gonna split the string into an array. I want the second part of it because the first part is going to be our name. So the second part of it is that, and we want to trim all the white spaces from it in here so that we have year. And the same thing we want to do for title. In this case, we want to split on the same thing, and I am going to take the first part and trim it. So in this case, whoops, title, we will have the title in here and the year in here. Don't believe me? Possible. Console log these and let's see if that works. Console log year. Title. 2 separate entries just in case. Avengers, search, click, bam. We have 2 perfectly, magically obtained strings, and now we can build our URL. So, the select movie. What do we do when we select a movie? We get movie from API, and well, would you know, we have a fancy get data part. Now, we had the get data here as well, so we need to build the final URL. Okay, good. Let's build the final URL. Let's do the same here now. The moment you click on it, we will build the URL. And the URL we have, in this case, it will be T. The title will be title. And of course, we have the year. So ampersand y equals year. We have our final URL. We will use the same code here. And instead of course, updating the list, we will add the movie just like before. And if all goes well, this should work. Avengers. Let's take a specific one. Let's take the Avengers, because regular Avengers would always return back the one from 99. So, or this one, I think. So let's take the actual movie from 2012 and see if our year works. Click. Let's see. Amazing movie from 2012 plus, and it's okay. So as you can see, everything works now. It's time to do some cleanup. It is time to actually make sure that things are hidden when something is added to it. Let's clean up the code and make sure we remove the button so that we keep updating the list the moment we start typing. Okay, so the moment we start, the moment we click here, get data and add the movie, we can remove the, or we can add the hidden fields again to that. Let me check. We do that. Where do we have it? In the add movie part, we remove the attribute, but we want to, oh wait, in the update list, of course, this is easier. We want to add the hidden attribute again, hide result list. And instead of remove attribute, we will do add attribute. So in this case, if we do Avengers, search, if I click on Age of Ultron, it should remove this one. Is it add attribute? I think it added. Or is it just attribute? It's set attribute. I remember now. So set attribute, that's my mistake. Avengers, search, click. Come on. What is going wrong? At least 2 arguments are required. Oh, of course, hidden. My God, true. We set hidden to true. Now it should work. As you can see, I still made mistakes. It's okay. It's okay. Voila. That's what I want. Clicking on it removes it, and then done. To be even cleaner, we only remove it the moment the movie is added. So after this. So inside the asynchronous function, of course, because you just saw the movie was added later than the result list was removed. So now we should have a very clean look in this. Yeah, okay, perfect. We have hidden that. We could hide this if we click on plus. I don't really care about that. You can do that for as much as you want. You can finalize as much as you want. Let me check what else we need to add. Of course, we need to keep updating the list. We need to keep updating the list the moment we are typing. So let's try and add that. As you can see, we have our button event listener. We have our input field on submit. So basically the button event listener, we need to replace with just the input. So in this case, we're going to remove the click. That's the other button event listener. I'm sorry. That's the add movie button event listener. The search, I think that's this one. Yeah, the search. So we're going to change that. We are going to, instead of submit, we're going to be key up. And we're not going to be looking at the form again. We are going to straight down the button. So let's start with this. We're going to remove the button. We're going to listen to the input field and then go from there. So remove the button on the index. We will put it in comment. Button is gone. Now we can't do anything anymore. The input field has input title. So we're going to listen to that. Input title. Key up is the moment we release our key, it's going to do something. And we are only going to do something the moment basically we are, let me check, the moment we are typing. So this can go wrong in a number of ways because we can type very fast, of course. But the moment we are typing, let me just think and check. We have, I think this should work actually. Let me check. Save. If I type A, nothing. V, E, et voila. So as you can see, we have it working by just changing, because the logic is constantly executed. So Avenger, G-E-R, S. As you can see, we don't have any error handling. We don't show something. So it works, but we want to refine it a bit more. So that means only execute it when there are, I think, at least 3 characters. So let me just think how we're going to do that. We are going to fetch the results. I think in the update list, we should place that. Let me check. Final URL, it's only when we have the results that we can do something. Update list. So if there's an error, we can add a div here with messages, ID errors, and we can add a paragraph in there that does something. Or we can just do a paragraph actually instead of a div. Might be easier to fill in. So if there is an error, we will let's do document get on by ID, inner text. Let's find for, what is it, message? No, error. And then we can just say no movies found. Keep trying. And then let's see what works. A, V, E, A. So as you can see, it works now, but it still shows that stupid thing, that the result list. So I only want to search, or I don't only want to show the result list when I have actually doing while I have data, Jesus, and then set the attribute for the error, hidden to true, the moment I have results. With a single quote here. All right, again, A, V, E, we have something, N, G, E, R, S. Perfect. You can go back. And we don't, of course, if there's already data, then it's going to keep returning the same thing. So that is basically our application. So let's go around once again. If I want to inception, you have a couple of possibilities. 2010, I click on it. I get the movie. I click on the plus. The runtime is added. And I'm on my way. This has been a very long video, very long exercise to actually, get to this point. But there are multiple steps into it. The basic code is very easy. The extensions we've built are very much only the tip of the iceberg. You can go so much deeper into this. So if you want some challenge, what I would suggest is building some extra functionality that, for example, you cannot add the same movie twice. How would you go about that? And just add more functions. Take a favorite. Just store more data. Do some more with minutes. Make a live counter with it. Make a graph of it. Have fun with the exercise. There's so much more to do. I would say thank you for your attention. I hope this has been handy for learning how to code a bigger project, and I would see you in the next video.